folks. This is Aunt Diane here. That's me dressed as a girl werewolf. No, it's not. But that's how I'd look if I were dressed as one, although not as nice as she does. Anyway, this is 1941, The Wolfman. Very good movie. Like I said on the other old movies, if it's colorized now, it was done after the fact, in most cases. There's a man named Larry Talbot, okay? He was out of the country for a number of years, and he comes back to England to be with his father. His brother had recently passed away in a hunting accident, and I guess his mother was already deceased because they don't mention her. So he's, getting back into the swing of things, living with his father. And he has a big, beautiful English manor. While Larry is getting reacquainted with his old house, he's checking out his father's nice collection of telescopes. And he looks through one of them into an upstairs window across the street that is upstairs from a shop and sees a beautiful girl looking in the mirror, primping herself up, getting ready for work. Larry walks across the street to the antique shop to check it out. After walking into the antique shop, Larry sees the beautiful blonde that he saw earlier through the window with his telescope. He says he's looking for a certain pair of strange earrings, very rare earrings. She said, "I'm sorry, we don't have anything like that in stock." And he said, "I saw you wearing them earlier." She's like, "Really?" And she goes, "How did you know that?" And I guess she didn't know he was looking in the window and he wasn't going to tell her because it sounded kind of weird, So he said, "Well, I'm looking for a walking stick." So she shows him the walking sticks that they have. And there is one very, very unusual one that he sees. And it's got a wolf head on top of it. And there's silver on top with the wolf head. And she tells him that it represents a werewolf who changes into a wolf at certain times of the year. The werewolf always sees a pentagram on the palm of the person he's going to kill next, which is kind of creepy. And all the villages around there, all the villagers in the village know the actual poem that goes with it. And it says, "Even a man who is pure in heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolfshane blooms and the autumn moon is bright." Wolfshane is a type of plant that blooms at certain times of year and on certain days. After Larry bought the walking stick, he refused to leave the shop until Gwen, who's the beautiful shop lady, agreed to go out with him that night after work. He shows up there and she's with her friend. She says, "I hope you don't mind if Jenny comes along. She wants to get her fortune told." They walk through these dark woods and they eventually get to where they have gypsy fortune teller. Gypsy is not really a term that is respectable to use anymore. They're called Romanis now, but for the sake of the movie, they're calling him Gypsy, because this was years ago. The fortune teller, a young man named Bella, starts telling Jenny's fortune and then sees something in her hand. And he gets very nervous and says, "Please go now. Come back tomorrow." The reason why Bella told Jenny to leave and come back tomorrow is because she is going to die that night if she doesn't get away immediately, because only the werewolf can see the pentagram on the next victim's hand. He wants her to get out of there as soon as possible. He goes, "Run, run." He doesn't tell her why. He just says, "Go now, go." Bella has changed into the werewolf and is hiding behind a tree where he sees Jenny running so he can catch her and kill her. Larry and Gwen hear Jenny screaming. They run to where she is and they see her lying dead. She had been attacked by an animal. They then see a wolf, and Larry beats the wolf to death with a cane, and then they leave the scene. After they leave, the wolf turns back into a man who happens to be Bella, the gypsy fortune teller. An old gypsy woman goes up to Larry and said that was her son who was killed. He had been a werewolf. But since he scratched up and injured Larry in the process, Larry will now have the curse of the werewolf. The gypsy gives a necklace to Larry, saying to always wear it, it will keep him safe. After the crazy night with Gwen, Larry walks her home and gives her the necklace that the gypsy gave him, so she will be safe. Next morning he wakes up, and some of the inspectors around town are suspicious of who could have murdered the man. They don't realize it was a wolf, and he became a man after he died. So they're accusing Larry because there's evidence that the cane was used. He said, "No, it was an animal I killed. I'm telling you, because he even scratched me in the chest." He pulls his robe open and the scratch is gone. The whole injury is gone. So they don't believe him. And, he's starting to get scared that maybe he is a werewolf. Sure enough, that evening on the full moon, he sees himself turning into a werewolf. He immediately goes out and he murders somebody. He comes back in, goes to sleep, and next morning forgot what happened. When the police, as well as the townspeople, found the dead body from the night before, they assumed it was just a wolf, an animal. So they all went around and set a bunch of traps, which Larry got stuck in. The very kindly gypsy woman did a spell on him to turn him back into a man, and he was able to take the trap off. Larry tells Gwen that he's a murderer and he's afraid he's going to hurt somebody. He says he's leaving town. Now, even though she's engaged, and the guy she's engaged to was cool about the two of them, Larry and Gwen being friends, he still said, that man looks very troubled. Please be careful, around him. It's pretty obvious by now she's fallen in love with Larry. She says, "Please let me go with you." He says, "No, no, no." And he looks in her hand, and the pentagram is there. He goes, "I gotta go," and he leaves. He goes to his father, and he said, "Dad, I gotta get out of here. You gotta help me. You can't let me go anywhere, and I'm gonna turn into a werewolf." The father says, "Is that gypsy woman putting these ideas in your head?" He said, "No, it's true, Dad. I am a werewolf, and I don't want to hurt anybody else." The father chains him up in a chair, but he turns into a wolf that night again, and he goes right after Gwen. The father does not know that it's his son Larry who's a werewolf. He thinks it's just a wild animal beast, and he beats him to death with the cane. After killing the beast, he realizes it is Larry, his son. Larry had been tied up, but with the strength of a wolf, he broke out of those chains, and he went out to murder people again. But the father actually saved Gwen's life, and she was shocked too when she saw him turn back into a man. I mean, it really is, if it were true, it's a very heartbreaking story. This is not the first werewolf movie that was ever made. The first movie was actually called The Werewolf of London, and it's a different looking wolf and different actors and everything. And that was made in 1937, which I guess is why they couldn't call this movie The Werewolf, and they had to call it The Wolfman. The Wolfman has a bunch of sequels that were made back in the day that were all very good. The werewolf The She-Wolf of London was a sequel to the Werewolf of London, and those were okay movies, but I mean, the Wolfman series I really love. I'll be back in a couple days with another one. See you soon. Love you. Bye-bye.